The Crystal Rose Charity Gala was the event of the season in New York City. The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel sparkled with golden lights, crystal chandeliers casting dancing shadows across marble floors. Women in designer gowns moved gracefully between tables laden with champagne glasses, while men in perfectly tailored tuxedos discussed business deals worth millions. Tonight, the city's elite had gathered under the pretense of charity, but everyone knew the real business happened in whispered conversations between courses. Vivian Cross adjusted her black evening dress one final time before stepping into the opulent ballroom. At 28, she had built a reputation as one of the most fearless investigative journalists in the city. Her emerald eyes were sharp, always searching for the story others missed. Tonight she wasn't here as a guest. She was here to hunt. Her target was Gabriel Sterling, the 34-year-old founder and CEO of Sterling Technologies. For months, she had been investigating rumors of unethical business practices within his company. Workers spoke of impossible deadlines, mysterious financial dealings, and a CEO who seemed untouchable. Gabriel Sterling was known for his brilliant mind and ruthless business tactics. But no journalist had ever managed to get close enough to uncover the truth. Vivian had spent weeks planning this infiltration. She had studied the guest list, learned the layout of the hotel, and even practiced walking in heels high enough to blend in with the socialite crowd. Everything had to be perfect. She spotted him immediately. Gabriel Sterling stood near the bar, surrounded by a small group of investors. He was exactly as the photograph showed, tall with dark hair perfectly styled, wearing a midnight blue tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. But what the photos hadn't captured was his presence. Even from across the room, she could feel the magnetic pull of his confidence. Vivian moved through the crowd, her press credentials hidden beneath her elegant clutch. She had learned long ago that the best way to get information was to become invisible, to blend so seamlessly into the environment that people forgot to guard their words. She positioned herself near a group of tech executives. Close enough to overhear conversations, but far enough to avoid suspicion. For the first hour, she listened to boring discussions about market trends and investment opportunities. Then, she heard Gabriel's voice, smooth and controlled, discussing a new project that made her journalist instincts come alive. The Jakarta expansion is moving faster than expected, Gabriel was saying to a distinguished older man. We should have the facilities operational within 6 months. Vivian's heart raced. She had heard rumors about Sterling Technologies expanding into Southeast Asia, but this was the first confirmation. She needed to get closer to hear more details. She began moving through the crowd, using other guests as cover. That was when disaster struck. A waiter carrying a tray of champagne glasses suddenly appeared in her path. Vivian tried to sidestep him, but her unfamiliar heels betrayed her. She stumbled, her body tilting dangerously to the right. The tray went flying, crystal glasses shattering across the marble floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire ballroom. But instead of crashing to the ground herself, Vivian found herself caught in strong arms. She looked up too, find herself staring directly into the piercing gray eyes of Gabriel Sterling himself. Time seemed to freeze. The ballroom noise faded to a distant murmur as Gabriel held her steady, his hands firm against her back. Up close, she could see tiny flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely him. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she couldn't tell if it was from the near fall or from the way he was looking at her. Are you hurt? His voice was deeper in person. With a warmth that surprised her, Vivian realized she was still in his arms and quickly stepped back, smoothing her dress. I'm fine, thank you. I'm so sorry about the mess. Gabriel glanced at the broken glass being quickly cleaned up by hotel staff, then back at her. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Crystal breaks, but it can be replaced. Are you sure you're not injured? Just my pride, Vivian managed, trying to regain her composure. This was not how she had planned to make contact with her target. Gabriel studied her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. It was as if he could see right through her carefully constructed facade. I don't think we've met. I'm Gabriel Sterling, He extended his hand and Vivian had no choice but to take it. His handshake was firm, confident, and lasted just a moment longer than strictly necessary. "Vivian," she said, deliberately omitting her last name. Vivian rose. "Like the charity," Gabriel observed, still holding her hand. "My parents had a sense of humor," she lied smoothly. Gabriel finally released her hand, but his eyes never left her face. "Would you like to get some air? It's quite crowded in here." This was exactly the opportunity Vivian had been hoping for, but now that it was happening, she felt strangely nervous. There was something about Gabriel Sterling that was different from what she had expected. The cold, calculating businessman she had researched seemed to have vanished, replaced by someone who looked at her as if she was the most interesting person in the room. "That would be nice," she heard herself saying. Gabriel placed his hand gently on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd toward the hotel's famous rooftop terrace. Vivian was acutely aware of his touch, of the way other women in the ballroom watched them with barely concealed envy. The terrace was a masterpiece of urban luxury. String lights twinkled overhead, creating an intimate atmosphere despite the city skyline stretching endlessly beyond the glass barriers. The cool night air was a welcome relief from the warmth of the crowded ballroom. "Better?" Gabriel asked, leading her to a quiet corner overlooking Central Park. "Much," Vivian agreed. Grateful for the chance to collect her thoughts, they stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both looking out at the city lights. Vivian knew she should be steering the conversation toward business, toward the questions she needed answered. But something about the moment felt too fragile to break with professional interrogation. "So, Vivian Rose," Gabriel said finally, turning to face her. "What brings you to the Crystal Rose Gala? Besides fate and champagne glasses, of course." Vivian had prepared several cover stories, but looking into his eyes, she found herself wanting to tell him something closer to the truth. "I'm interested in technology companies. It's the innovation, the potential to change the world." Gabriel's expression shifted slightly, becoming more guarded. "And what do you do?" "I write," Vivian said carefully. "It's about business, innovation, the people behind the companies that shape our future." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Gabriel seemed to sense this, his gray eyes studying her with renewed interest. "A writer," he repeated. "Anyone I might have read?" Before Vivian could answer, Gabriel's phone buzzed. He glanced down at it, and his expression immediately became businesslike. "I'm sorry, I need to take this. It's about the Jakarta project." Vivian's pulse quickened. This was her chance. "Of course, don't let me keep you from important business." Gabriel hesitated, looking between his phone and her face. "Would you wait for me? I'd like to continue our conversation." There was something in his voice, a note of genuine interest that made Vivian's chest tighten. She nodded, not trusting. Her voice, Gabriel stepped away to take the call, speaking in low tones that she couldn't quite catch. Vivian watched him, noting the way his shoulders tensed as he listened to whoever was on the other end. This was the Gabriel Sterling she had researched, the focused businessman who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. But when he finished the call and turned back to her, his expression softened again. It was like watching two different people occupy the same body. "Crisis averted," he said, rejoining her at the terrace railing. "Where were we?" Vivian realized this was her moment. She could push for information about the Jakarta project, about the business practices she had come to investigate. But looking at Gabriel, at the way the city lights reflected in his eyes, she found herself asking a different question entirely. "Do you ever get tired of it? The business, the pressure, always being on?" Gabriel looked surprised by the question. For a moment, his carefully controlled mask slipped, and she saw something vulnerable underneath. "Every day," he admitted quietly. "But it's the price of success, isn't it? There's always someone watching, waiting for you to make a mistake." "Like journalists," Vivian said, testing the waters. Gabriel's laugh was rueful, especially journalists. "They see everything in black and white, good guys and bad guys. They don't understand that sometimes you have to make difficult choices to protect the people who depend on you." Vivian felt a stab of guilt. Was that what she was doing? Seeing him in black and white? The man standing beside her seemed far more complex than the villain she had imagined. Maybe they just want to understand, she said softly. Maybe they think that if people knew the whole story, they might see things differently. Gabriel turned to look at her fully, his eyes searching her face. And what about you, Vivian Rose? What story are you trying to understand? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning neither of them was quite ready to acknowledge. Vivian realized she was standing at a crossroads. She could continue with her original plan, use this connection to get the information she needed for her story, or she could choose a different path, one that led into unknown territory. Before she could answer, the terrace doors opened, and a woman in a stunning red dress approached them. Vivian recognized her immediately from her research. Rebecca Sterling, Gabriel's younger sister and business partner. Gabriel, there you are, Rebecca said, her eyes curious as they took in Vivian. The Hendersons are looking for you. Something about their investment timeline. Gabriel sighed, the moment of intimacy broken. Of course they are. He turned to Vivian. I'm sorry duty calls again. I understand, Vivian said, though part of her wanted to protest. Gabriel reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, but instead of handing it to her immediately, he borrowed a pen from his sister and wrote something on the back. My personal number, he said, offering her the card. In case you'd like to continue our conversation about stories and understanding. Vivian took the card, her fingers brushing his again. I'd like that. Gabriel smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. Good, I'll call you tomorrow. As he walked away with his sister, Vivian realized she was in serious trouble. She had come here to expose Gabriel Sterling to find evidence of his wrongdoing. Instead, she found herself hoping he would keep his promise to call. She looked down at the business card in her hand, at his personal number written in bold, confident strokes. Tomorrow, she would have to decide what kind of story she really wanted to tell. Vivian spent the next morning pacing her small apartment, Gabriel's business card burning a hole in her pocket. Editor James Morrison had been calling since dawn. Eager to hear about her infiltration of the Gala, she had been avoiding his calls. Unable to explain the strange twist her investigation had taken, when her phone finally rang with an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat. Vivian, it's Gabriel Sterling. His voice sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. I wasn't sure you'd actually call. I'm a man of my word, Gabriel said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner tonight, somewhere quiet where we can actually hear each other talk. Vivian knew she should say no. Every professional instinct screamed that she was getting too close to her subject. But the memory of his gray eyes, the vulnerability she had glimpsed behind his controlled facade, made her hesitate. I'd like that, she heard herself saying. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. After she gave him her address and hung up, Vivian stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. What was she doing? She was supposed to be investigating this man, not dating him. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. Where's my story, Cross? The Sterling piece needs to be filed by Friday. Vivian's stomach clenched. Friday was only 3 days away. She needed to remember why she was really here. That evening, Gabriel arrived exactly at 7, driving a sleek black sedan instead of the flashy sports car she had expected. He wore dark jeans and a simple white button-down shirt, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him in photographs. You look beautiful, he said, as she slid into the passenger seat. The genuine appreciation in his voice made her cheeks warm. He took her to a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where the owner greeted Gabriel by name and led them to a corner table away from other diners. How did you find this place? Vivian asked, looking around at the warm, intimate atmosphere. My sister brought me here when I was having the worst week of my life, Gabriel said, unfolding his napkin. Sometimes you need to remember that not everything has to be impressive to be perfect. As they shared pasta and wine, Vivian found herself genuinely enjoying Gabriel's company. He was intelligent and funny, with a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. He asked her about her writing, and she found herself telling him about her passion for uncovering truth, for giving voice to stories that might otherwise go untold. That's admirable, Gabriel said, his eyes serious. The world needs people willing to ask difficult questions, even when those questions are about you, Vivian asked, testing the waters. Gabriel's expression became thoughtful, especially then. Power without accountability is dangerous. It was not the answer she had expected from someone with his reputation. As the evening wore on, Vivian realized she was seeing a side of Gabriel that the public never glimpsed. He talked about his responsibility to his employees, about the pressure of making decisions that affected thousands of families. He spoke about his sister Rebecca with obvious affection, about how she had been his anchor during their father's illness and death. Sterling Technologies wasn't supposed to be my life, Gabriel admitted as they shared dessert. I was going to be a teacher, believe it or not. High school physics. What changed? Vivian asked, genuinely curious. My father got sick when I was 25. Rebecca was still in college. The company was struggling, and if it failed, hundreds of people would lose their jobs. Gabriel's jaw tightened slightly, so I stepped in. Temporarily, I thought. That was 9 years ago. Vivian felt another stab of guilt. The ruthless businessman she had been investigating was actually a man who had sacrificed his dreams to save his family's company and protect his employees. Do you regret it? She asked. Quietly, Gabriel considered the question seriously. Days. But then I think about the innovations we've created, the jobs we've provided, the future we're building. It's not the life I planned, but it's the life I chose. When Gabriel walked her to her apartment door, Vivian felt conflicted. The evening had been perfect, but it had also complicated everything. She was falling for the man she was supposed to expose. I had a wonderful time, she said, meaning it. Gabriel stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. Right. So did I, Vivian. I need to tell you something. Her heart stopped. He figured out who she really was. I don't usually do this, Gabriel continued. Get involved with someone I've just met, but there's something about you that makes me want to take risks I normally wouldn't. Before she could respond, he kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, then deeper as she responded. When they finally broke apart, Vivian felt dizzy. Good night, Vivian rose. Gabriel murmured against her forehead as she watched him drive away. Vivian knew she was in serious trouble. The next morning, everything fell apart. Vivian's phone was ringing before she was fully awake. James Morrison's voice was sharp with excitement. Cross, you brilliant woman. How did you get those photos? Photos? Vivian asked, still groggy. Check your email. Someone sent us pictures of you and Gabriel Sterling at dinner last night. The story just got a lot more interesting. Vivian's blood ran cold. She fumbled for her laptop, opening her email to find a series of high-quality photographs showing her and Gabriel at the restaurant, clearly intimate, obviously romantic. James, I can explain. No need to explain. This is perfect. The mysterious woman who captured the uncatchable, Gabriel Sterling? We can run this alongside your expose. It'll be front-page material. Vivian's stomach churned. I'm not ready to file the story yet. What do you mean, not ready? You've got inside access now. Use it. Before she could respond, her doorbell rang. Still in her pajamas, she went to answer it, expecting to find a delivery driver. Instead, Gabriel stood in her hallway, his face grim, holding a tablet showing the same photos James had just sent her. We need to talk, he said, his voice cold in a way she hadn't heard before. Vivian let him in, her mind racing. Can explain, can you? He set the tablet down on her coffee table, the photos displaying their intimate dinner for all to see. Because right now it looks like I've been played by a very talented journalist. The way he said journalists made her flinch. How did you know? I know everything about everyone I get close to, Vivian. So the question is, how long have you known who I was? Vivian sank onto her couch, the weight of her deception crushing down on her. From the beginning, Gabriel's laugh was bitter. Of course. The ambitious journalist seduces the corrupt CEO. It's a classic story. It's not like that, Vivian protested, standing up. Yes, I came to the Gala to investigate you. But last night that was real. My feelings are real. Are they? Gabriel's gray eyes were like ice. Or are they just part of your method? You know they're real, Vivian said desperately. You felt it too. I know you did. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. When he spoke again, His voice was carefully controlled. It doesn't matter what I felt. What matters is that in about 6 hours, every major news outlet in the city is going to run those photos. By tomorrow, the speculation will be everywhere. Your editor is probably already planning your expose to coincide with the relationship reveal. Vivian's heart sank. He was right, and they both knew it. So what do we do? She asked quietly. Gabriel began pacing her small living room, his businessman's mind clearly working through the problem. We have 2 options. Option 1, you publish your story, deny any relationship, and let the media circus play out. Your career benefits, my reputation takes a hit, and we both move on. And option 2? Gabriel stopped pacing and looked directly at her. We control the narrative. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. A contract marriage. 6 months. We present a united front. Let the relationship story overshadow any business investigation, and then quietly divorce when the media attention dies down. Vivian stared at the contract in his hands. You're suggesting we get married to manipulate the press? I'm suggesting we protect both our interests, Gabriel corrected. You get the story of a lifetime from the inside, and I get a wife who understands the game we're playing. And what happens to the investigation? To the truth, Gabriel's expression softened slightly. Maybe the truth is more complicated than you thought. Maybe 6 months of marriage will give you the real story, not just the one you came looking for. Vivian took the contract with trembling hands. The terms were surprisingly fair. She would maintain her independence, her career, her own bank accounts. In exchange, she would play the role of Gabriel's wife in public, attend company functions, and keep their private lives private. Why would you do this? She asked. Why not just let me publish the expose and be done with it? Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. When he answered, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. Because despite everything, I still feel something for you, and I think you feel something for me too. Maybe this is crazy, but maybe crazy is what we both need. Vivian looked down at the contract, then back at Gabriel's face. She could see the uncertainty beneath his controlled exterior, the vulnerability. He was trying to hide. If I sign this, she said slowly, what happens to us? To whatever this is between us? I don't know, Gabriel admitted. But I'd like to find out. Vivian took a deep breath and signed the contract. 3 days later, she stood in a small chapel in Gabriel's sister's garden, wearing a simple white dress and holding a bouquet of roses. The ceremony was intimate, with only Rebecca, James Morrison, and a few close friends as witnesses. As Gabriel slipped a platinum ring onto her finger, Vivian realized she had no idea what she had gotten herself into. But looking into his gray eyes, seeing the mixture of hope and wariness there, she knew. She wanted to find out. You may kiss the bride, the officiant said. Gabriel's kiss was gentle, tentative, as if he was afraid she might disappear. When they broke apart, he whispered against her lips, No going back now, Mrs. Sterling. No going back, Vivian agreed, though she wondered if either of them truly understood what they had just committed to. 3 months into their contract marriage, Vivian and Gabriel had settled into an unexpected rhythm. They lived in Gabriel's penthouse apartment, maintaining separate bedrooms but sharing morning coffee and evening dinners. To the outside world, they appeared to be the perfect power couple. Inside their home, they were still 2 people trying to figure out what was real and what was performance. Vivian had been surprised by how natural it felt to slip into the role of Gabriel's wife. She attended company functions, charmed investors, and played her part flawlessly. But more than that, she found herself genuinely caring about Sterling Technologies and the people who worked there. The Jakarta facility is ahead of schedule. Gabriel told her over breakfast one Thursday morning, sharing his tablet to show her the construction photos. We'll be able to provide jobs for over 2,000 local workers. That's wonderful, Vivian said, meaning it. Over the past months, she had learned that Gabriel's business practices, while sometimes ruthless, were always aimed at protecting his employees and growing sustainable operations. Rebecca wants to fly out next month for the opening ceremony, Gabriel continued. I was thinking you might like to come with us, see the operation firsthand. Vivian looked up from her coffee, surprised. You want me to come on a business trip? I want my wife to see what Sterling Technologies actually does, Gabriel said, his eyes holding hers. Not the version you read about in competitor reports, but the real thing. The word wife still sent a strange flutter through Vivian's chest. Over the months, the line between their contract and their reality had begun to blur in ways neither of them had anticipated. Their relationship had evolved beyond the carefully negotiated terms of their agreement. They talked for hours about everything from global politics to their favorite books. Gabriel had a sharp wit and surprising depth that continued to fascinate her. Sometimes when they were laughing together over dinner or working side by side in his home office, Vivian forgot entirely that their marriage had an expiration date, but she hadn't forgotten her original mission. The journalist in her continued to observe, to analyze, to search for the truth about Gabriel Sterling. What she had found was far more complex than the story she had originally intended to write. That afternoon, while Gabriel was in meetings, Vivian sat in his home office, working on what would become her real story about Sterling Technologies. Instead of an expose about corporate corruption, she was writing about a company that had revolutionized manufacturing while maintaining ethical labor practices, that had created thousands of jobs while pushing the boundaries of sustainable technology. She was so absorbed in her writing that she didn't hear Gabriel come home. Working on something interesting? His voice came from behind her. Vivian spun around, closing her laptop quickly. Just some freelance pieces. Gabriel raised an eyebrow, moving to sit on the edge of his desk. Still keeping secrets, Mrs. Sterling? There was something playful in his tone, but Vivian could sense the underlying question. Their marriage contract had created an unusual intimacy, but trust was still something they were both learning to navigate. Not secrets, Vivian said carefully. Just work. Gabriel studied her face for a moment, then seemed to let it go. Rebecca called. She wants to have dinner with us tomorrow night. Fair warning. She's going to interrogate you about your intentions toward her beloved brother. Vivian laughed. I think I can handle one protective sister. You haven't met Rebecca in full protective mode, Gabriel warned, but his smile was fond. That evening, as they prepared for bed in their separate rooms, Gabriel paused in Vivian's doorway. Vivian? His voice was softer than usual. Are you happy? With this arrangement, the question caught her off guard. Was she happy? The past 3 months had been unlike anything she had ever experienced. Gabriel was challenging, complex, infuriating, and somehow exactly what she hadn't known she needed. Yes, she said honestly. Are you? Gabriel's smile was small but genuine. More than I expected to be. After he closed her door, Vivian lay in bed thinking about his question. She was happy, but she was also scared, because somewhere along the way, their contract marriage had begun to feel like something much more real and much more dangerous. The next evening, Rebecca Sterling arrived. For dinner, armed with wine and questions. Gabriel's younger sister was as formidable as he had warned, with his same gray eyes and a directness that left no room for evasion. So, Vivian, Rebecca said over the main course, tell me how you really feel about my brother. Gabriel warned, but his sister ignored him. I'm serious. 6 months ago, Gabriel was married to his work and allergic to commitment. Now he smiles when he talks about you, and he actually leaves the office before 8 p.m. I want to know what your game is. Vivian set down her fork, meeting Rebecca's challenging gaze directly. I love your brother. The words surprised everyone at the table, including Vivian herself. She hadn't planned to say them, hadn't even fully acknowledged the feeling to herself. But sitting there, with Gabriel's shocked expression and Rebecca's satisfied smile, she realized it was absolutely true. Good, Rebecca said simply. Because he's been in love with you since your second date, and it was getting painful to watch him pretend otherwise? Gabriel cleared his throat, his cheeks slightly flushed. Perhaps we could change the subject. Rebecca was just getting started. You know, Vivian, when Gabriel first told me about your marriage, I thought he had finally lost his mind. Contract marriage to a journalist investigating him? It sounded like something out of a soap opera. Still does, Vivian admitted. But watching you two together, Rebecca continued, it's obvious that whatever started as a business arrangement has become something real. The question is, what are you going to do about it? After Rebecca left, Gabriel and Vivian found themselves alone with the weight of the evening's revelations between them. Did you mean it? Gabriel asked quietly as they cleaned up the dishes. What you said to Rebecca? Vivian's hands stilled on the plate she was washing. Which part? It's the part about loving me. She turned to face him, water dripping from her hands. Gabriel stood close enough that she could see the uncertainty in his gray eyes, the hope he was trying to hide. Yes, she said simply. I meant it. Gabriel stepped closer, his hands coming up to frame her face. I love you too, Vivian, not the contract wife, not the role you've been playing. You, the real you. When he kissed her, it was different from their carefully orchestrated public displays of affection. This kiss was desperate, hungry, full of 3 months of suppressed longing and the relief of finally telling the truth. They barely made it to Gabriel's bedroom before the carefully maintained boundaries of their arrangement completely dissolved. As Gabriel worshipped her body with his hands and mouth, as she arched beneath him and whispered his name like a prayer, Vivian realized their contract had become irrelevant. This was real, binding in ways no legal document could capture. Afterward, as they lay tangled in his sheets, Gabriel traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. So what happens now? He asked. Our contract expires in 3 months. Vivian turned. In his arms to face him, I think we need a new agreement. What kind of agreement? It's the kind that doesn't have an expiration date, she said, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw. The kind where we stop pretending this is temporary. Gabriel's smile was brilliant. I think I can negotiate those terms, Vivian said, pulling him down for another kiss. 'Cause I have a confession to make. Gabriel raised an eyebrow. Oh. I finished the story. The real story about Sterling Technologies, about you. It's not what I originally planned to write. What did you write instead? Vivian smiled. A love story. About a journalist who set out to expose a corrupt CEO and ended up discovering that sometimes the truth is more beautiful than the fiction. Gabriel was quiet for a moment, then began to laugh. So you're saying I've been seduced by my own wife? Something like that, Vivian agreed. Is that a problem? Gabriel rolled over, pinning her beneath him with a grin that was pure mischief. Mrs. Sterling, I think it's the best business deal I've ever made. Vivian realized that sometimes the best stories were the ones you never saw coming. She had set out to write an expose about Gabriel Sterling, but instead she had discovered something much more valuable, a love that was real, complicated, and absolutely worth fighting for. 6 months later, they renewed their vows in the same garden chapel where they had first married. This time, Vivian wore a dress she had chosen herself, and when Gabriel slipped a new ring onto her finger, it was engraved with words that had nothing to do with contracts or agreements. Forever yours, G. No expiration date, he whispered. As he kissed her, no expiration date, Vivian agreed, knowing that some agreements were meant to last a lifetime.